Next, we will discuss how perception and action help us to control our posture and balance. Postural control and balance involves multiple senses to provide feedback about how the body is moving within the environment. For example, if a gymnast is performing a routine on a balance beam, she uses vision about her body position as she moves, as well as information about the location of the beam in the floor. Proprioception tells her about her limb and body parts and how they are positioned relative to each other. Vestibular information tells her about her head position and head movement, including linear and angular movements. Depending on the task, other types of somatosensory information like touch or other senses like audition may provide additional sources of important information. These different senses combine to provide a coherent understanding of our bodies, how we move in the environment, and what types of movements are possible. Posture and balance are specific to environmental and task constraints. Clearly, it's more difficult to maintain balance on a balance beam than it is on the floor on 2 feet. Posture and balance are maintained in many different situations in which we are stationary or moving. We typically call stationary tasks static and moving tasks dynamic. We also can balance on different parts of our body, although we commonly think of balance as standing balance on 1 or 2 feet. We can also balance while sitting, on hands and knees while crawling, or on your hands while doing a handstand. We also have to maintain balance on various surfaces and under different environmental conditions. For example, walking on an icy sidewalk or running on the sand on the beach. Similar to what we saw in Chapter 3 when we discussed stability and balance, and in Chapter 5 when we discussed the development of locomotion, balance improves across the ages from 3 to 19 years. But the pattern of improvements is task-specific. For example, balancing on 2 legs may be acquired earlier than balancing on 1 leg or balancing on a balance beam. Balance depends on the relative importance placed on different types of sensory information. This is called a sensory strategy. For example, young children rely heavily on vision to help control posture and maintain balance. But as we become more proficient at balancing, we begin to rely more on kinesthetic or proprioceptive information than vision. For example, if you need to go to the bathroom at night and you have to walk in the dark, you can do so without falling over. Static and dynamic balance also rely on different sensory strategies. While static balance depends on sensory feedback or feedback control, dynamic balance requires advanced planning or feed-forward control. During locomotion, you have to maintain stability while propelling your body forward. To do so, we use 2 frames of reference, the support surface and gravity. While younger children use the trunk or support surface as a reference, older children and adults use gravity as their reference frame. In addition, in order to maintain balance during locomotion, you must control the movements around each body segment. In other words, you must control the many degrees of freedom. One strategy would be to stabilize the head on the trunk. An alternative strategy is to control the head position in space. Assayante and Ambillard developed a model to explain the development of balance during locomotion across a lifespan. Their model had 4 developmental periods. The first period covers birth to the onset of standing. This period is defined as cephalocaudal or head-to-toe muscular control. The second time period starts from the onset of standing to about 6 years of age. During this time, coordination between the upper and lower body is developed. The third period starts around 7 and continues into adolescence. During this period, there is refinement and stabilization of the head during balance control. The head can be stabilized on the trunk or stabilized in space. The fourth period begins during adolescence and extends throughout adulthood. During this period, there is refined control of the degrees of freedom of the movement around the neck. The task of childhood is to learn how different frames of reference complement each other during balance control and movement. Research examining the developmental changes in balance control have shown that with walking experience, infants are able to begin to catch themselves before falling by taking a step. Before taking a step, even these young infants show anticipatory postural adjustments in which the muscles of the legs and trunk become active in preparation for the step. This is necessary to maintain balance. With more experience walking, the anticipatory postural adjustments of infants and young children become better coordinated. Children 7 years and older begin to use gravity as a reference frame instead of the support surface. Balance continues to improve into adulthood. Young adults placed on a movable platform do not need to take a step in order to regain balance if the perturbation or balance disturbance is slow or small. Rather, adults can control their lower body at the ankle or use what's called an ankle strategy. If perturbations are large or fast, adults control the muscles around their hips or use a hip strategy. The image here shows an ankle, hip, and step strategy for controlling balance. In contrast to young adults, older adults take more time to initiate a response to perturbations. They often use patterns different than young adults, meaning that for small or slow perturbations, they adopt a hip strategy rather than an ankle strategy. This is an inefficient strategy because they are using the large muscles around the hips rather than relying on the small muscles of the ankles. Changes in many body systems contribute to balance difficulties and falls in older adults. For example, older adults lose sensitivity of their sensory receptors, particularly those in the body that sense body positions, like proprioceptors. This results in an over-reliance on vision. And unfortunately, older adults also exhibit visual problems that can be caused by cataracts, glaucoma, or normal aging. Another factor that affects older adult stability is a loss of muscle strength that may be due to a decrease in fast-twitch muscle fibers common in large muscle groups. Joint problems such as arthritis can also increase the risk of falls in older adults. Lastly, the ability to activate muscle fibers is slower in older adults due to reduced nerve conduction speeds. Balance problems and increased risk of falling is a significant concern for the elderly. Falls are a leading cause of accidental death in people over 75. Balance programs can be used to improve an older person's response to balance perturbations. In particular, exercise programs that help improve lower body strength and balance are associated with reductions in falls in older adults. In order to determine if someone has balance problems, you must first assess their balance. We can observe their responses while standing on a force plate. We can perturb their balance and see how they respond. The figure to the right shows how a perturbation could be caused by a force transducer, which is attached to a harness, that unexpectedly pulls a participant backwards. Or a perturbation can be caused by the force plate tilting forward unexpectedly. We can also create situations in which the sensory information from one system conflicts with another. For example, vision and proprioception. We can also see how balance is affected when a source of sensory information is taken away or reduced, like in a dim or dark room. In addition to behavioral observations, we can also attach EMG sensors to determine differences in muscle activation patterns during balance perturbations. Okay, to summarize. In this chapter, we have discussed the relationship between actions and perceptions, such that actions are fine-tuned and coupled with sensory perceptions. Movement experience, especially during infancy and childhood, are necessary to facilitate perceptual development. Studies of balance and postural control across the lifespan provide evidence of the interrelation between movement and perceptual development.